Imagine standing in the dark, cool interior of a limestone cave tens of thousands of years ago. The only light comes from a flickering fire at the center of the space. A 16-year-old girl, lean and strong from a life of gathering grains and trekking across vast landscapes, looks down and sees a streak of red. She has no textbook to consult. No older sister has sat her down for the talk. And the concept of a pharmacy is tens of millennia away. This moment is one of the most universal human experiences in history, a biological transition shared by nearly every woman who has ever lived. Yet it remains almost entirely absent from our history books. How did she feel? What did she actually use? And how did the people around her react? Today, we're uncovering the forgotten history of menstruation. To understand the ancient period, we must first understand the ancient body. In our modern well-fed world, the average age of a first period is around 12 or 13. But according to a hypothesis proposed by researcher Rose Frisch, the prehistoric body may have operated very differently. So what determined when it actually began? Her theory suggests a girl's body needs a minimum threshold of stored body fat before menstruation can even begin. In the high-stakes world of prehistory, where every calorie was spent tracking animals and gathering wild plants, reaching that threshold was an incredibly slow process. Anthropological studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups, like the Onkung of the Kalahari, support this idea. Among these communities, menarche often happens much later, closer to 16 years old. If this pattern held true in prehistory, the first period wasn't a childhood event at all. It was a late adolescent milestone. So when that girl in the cave saw blood, what did she actually do? Here's where the trail almost completely disappears. Archaeologists have never found a Stone Age pad. Because the materials likely used, soft moss, plant fibers, worked animal hide, are organic, they rot. They disappear into the soil within years, sometimes within months. This isn't confirmed fact, but an educated inference based on materials we know these communities used for wound care and everyday hygiene. As humanity moved from scattered caves to organized cities, something remarkable happened. Menstruation became a subject worthy of the world's first doctors, and the proof has survived for nearly 4,000 years. The oldest known document on women's health is the Kahun Gynecological Papyrus, dating back to roughly 1800 BCE in ancient Egypt. This scroll doesn't treat menstruation as taboo. It treats it as legitimate medicine, discussed openly, alongside pregnancy and contraception. A few centuries later, the Ebers Papyrus showed Egyptian doctors going even further. They tracked a woman's bleeding patterns, treating irregular cycles as a genuine marker of overall health, not a shameful mystery to be hidden. And by the 1st or 2nd century CE, the Roman physician Soranus of Ephesus wrote a detailed 4-volume text simply titled Gynecology. He specifically recommended rest during difficult periods, advice that sounds strikingly modern, a reminder that the physical toll of a period was recognized medically 2,000 years ago. Now here's what's genuinely fascinating. In several ancient and indigenous cultures, a girl's first period wasn't hidden at all. It was celebrated. Among Australian Aboriginal groups, a young woman entering seclusion at menarche would later be formally reintroduced to her entire community through a ritual bath, followed by her body being decorated in red ochre and white clay. It wasn't shame. It was a public celebration of her new status as a woman. This reverence wasn't limited to Australia. In ancient Egypt, menstrual blood itself was directly connected to the goddess Isis, associated with both power and ritual purification. But one tradition takes this even further, and it's still happening today. At the Kamakya temple in India, a living tradition continues, unbroken into the present day. Each year, during a festival called Ambubachi Mela, the temple closes its doors for 3 full days, honoring the goddess's menstruation as something entirely sacred. When the temple reopens, thousands of devotees gather to receive blessings tied directly to this event. Not shame, not silence. A celebration that has survived for centuries. So if ancient and indigenous cultures across the world treated this moment with such genuine significance? How did we end up with the shame so many people associate with periods today? The answer might genuinely surprise you. Shame, in the exact way we experience it now, is a surprisingly modern invention. As the West entered the Victorian era, a wave of extreme conservatism quietly rewrote the rules. In 1896, the first commercial disposable pad, called Lister's towels, hit the market, and it failed almost immediately. Not because it didn't work, but because advertising restrictions were so strict and public embarrassment so deep that women were too ashamed to even be seen buying it in a store. It took the bloodshed of World War I to finally break the cycle, and the discovery happened almost completely by accident. Nurses on the front lines noticed something. The cellulose material used in wartime bandages was dramatically more absorbent than the old cloth rags women had relied on for centuries. That accidental discovery directly inspired Kotex, launched by Kimberly Clark just a couple of years after the war ended, the world's first widely marketed, commercially successful sanitary pad. We've traveled from a prehistoric cave to Egyptian medical scrolls to a living temple tradition still practiced today. And what stands out isn't primitiveness. It's how many ancient societies treated this universal experience with genuine dignity, sometimes more openly than we still manage today. For nearly all of human history, women figured this out themselves, generation after generation, turning a simple biological reality into a thread of resilience that runs through the entire story of being human.